Good evening, everyone. Or good morning. Happy Friday, everyone. I'd like to welcome special guest Dracula. Hello! Bleh! I'm eating a turkey melt. You're at the beach and listening to the stream? That sounds nice. You need a nice cold drink. It's when you fucking Dracula. Yup, we're transitioning to the medieval era. A nice cold, ice-cold water. Yummy. Palindrome? Hey, thank you. You pressed the fucking funny button. How's everyone doing today? Yes, I love this song. One of these days, we will play the Blasphemous games. I think before we do that, I'd want to learn more about, like, Spanish Catholicism. Specifically, the lay mythology. Hi, Ariel. Welcome to the stream. God, this is such a fucking banger song. It's actually not... Hi, welcome to chat, by the way. But it's actually not super hot today, thankfully. Penitente. Blasphemous is one of the only games I've played where I was like, I could make an OC for this. Like, I'm that level of a fan thing for fucking Blasphemous. Love those games. Are people doing lore videos for that one? That'd be a fun series to do a lore video for. 95 and 60% humidity. Fuck that, dog. At least out here in the Sonora, they're just fucking... Like, we've got a nice cloud cover today, so it's not super hot, but it'll be 95 and, like, 1% humidity. It's like being in an air fryer. Literally. It's so humid, even Ben Shapiro's wife is moist. Nyah, 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 nyah. That's a good line, Ellie. Thank you. Are you listening to the stream while playing Forklift again? Or have you yet to go play Forklift? About to head out to Forklift? Hell yeah. Sorry, I'm vibing to the song. The song rules. I've been trying to make this one particular turkey pesto melt from a diner I like for the last couple days. This is my 5th or 6th iteration. I think I'm getting closer. I don't know how they do it at this diner, but the texture on it is perfect. It's like crispy and golden on the outside. Everything's warm and nice and chewy on the inside. I tried the more traditional, like, patty melt technique where you, like, fry the pieces of bread initially and then you kind of combine them at the end, but that's not quite giving me what I need. So I've been trying putting it in the toaster oven and then finishing it in the pan. A little bit of butter. It's got a good crunch. Oh, I love my water. You gotta work at every restaurant you like for a month to steal recipes and then leave. It's pretty easy to learn a lot of recipes, though. I've considered working food service, or I did back when I was, like, working things that weren't this job. Nah, it's okay if you're lagging. I got a question. Like, of all the things to become popular, why are Labubus popular? Like, I know people are, like, buying them as, like, a speculative vehicle, and they're kind of ugly cute, but, like, is there anything more to that? Also, the docket for today is the transition to medieval esoterica. Hi, Riley. Peanuts. Beanie Baby style. Hey, welcome to chat. Trying to learn more about alchemy and esotericism because I'm trying to make a game themed around it. Wow, that's a lot of viewers. I did not think there would be this many. Thanks! Jeez! Wow, I thought you'd be like an unpopular asshole, but there's a lot of people here. I'm giving you a hard time. Don't worry about it. Don't worry your head. Welcome to chat, Charmiest. And don't you worry, we're gonna talk about fucking esoterica today. We're still warming up. We're still warming up. Oh, is Lafufu like its girlfriend or something? I mostly mean even the Twitches I like and think are cool don't get this many. There's a lot of very talented Twitch streamers just kind of languishing in obscurity. But I'm lucky enough to have built up an audience over time that enjoys hearing me talk. And I have experience podcasting and producing things in other audio mediums, so I'm pretty good at talking. I do know there's blind boxes to Labubus. Yeah, there's like a gacha element. Influencer trends. I know that's a big thing on platforms I'm not usually on, where it's like opening up Pokemon packs or whatever. I can see people doing that with Labubus. Lafufu are fake Labubus. Oh. That makes sense. I guess. Yeah, I know there's a bunch of like limited edition ones, and that's a thing. I dropped the text of Labubu lore on my damn foot, and it hurt. Fuck. Good thing I saw the Discord notification. I was thinking this was at 10:30. Nope, 10 a.m. every day. But we usually, like, I don't know, just podcast a little bit before we start. We're just chilling. Because they like CT's shoelaces it well. Do you have anything for Old Peace / Devil's Triad? I don't know what those are. Oh, those are the new Warframe updates. I don't know. I didn't watch the TennoCon thing. I'll have Holly explain it to me at some point. Missed meal chat, but I've been having some real good tofu lately. Dredge it in potato starch before pan frying till cooked to taste. Stir in Poisson sauce. Sounds good. Sounds good as fuck. The potato starch thing is clever. Oh, they had a narrative panel VOD? Interesting. The writing for this game is quite fun. I would be interested in seeing how the sausage is made. Lavos Deluxe is coming? What does that mean? What is a Lavos Deluxe? Fancy skin? Okay. I don't engage much with the fashion of this game. I feel like the base aesthetics are like already pretty damn interesting. I'm working on a world building for a comic with major religious magic aspect. I think that's a lot of why people are interested in esoterica. Like, there's a lot of media generally out there. Like, there's a lot of media in general that pulls from historical esoterica and religious shit and doesn't really realize it. Like, fantasy is such an incestuous genre in general. It's like a lot of people don't even realize like they're referencing the Greek magical papyri or some shit. Shit's interesting. It's certainly interesting. Esoterica is good fiction. It's like quasi-fiction is the thing. It's like kind of fiction, kind of not fiction. Yeah, there's so many points like the SCP. The SCP writers like seem to be a pretty broad bunch. Is it still fiction if the author fully believes it? Yeah, like I don't think religious literature counts as fiction. Oh yeah, the whole concept of a summoning circle comes from like medieval magic. Yeah, SCP is so broad. Also, welcome to chat, ARP. Cheery banana bread with dark chocolate sesame spread and a big cup of black coffee. That sounds freaking yummy. I would eat banana bread and it would rock my world. It's interesting. I think there's a disconnect between like what makes magic interesting in fiction as like, hey, Cinemachine, what's up? I think there's an interesting divide between what makes magic interesting in a world that has real wizards and like what makes magic interesting in a world that doesn't have wizards. Like, one of my favorite things that happens in fiction is when a character is coded as a magician but is not actually a magician, kind of like the judge in Blood Meridian. You know, he's an alchemist. He makes gunpowder out of urine and saltpeter and shit. But he's an alchemist in a scary way, or like Melquiades in 100 Years of Solitude. He seems so whimsical, botanizing and catching butterflies and all that. There's a bit where the judge is like, I hate birds. If I had my way, I would have them all jailed up in zoos. Well, it's like the essence of the judge is that one scene where they find like a piece of conquistador armor, and he just like, he makes an effortless sketch of it. Like, he makes a sketch of it and then just throws it into the fire. Or he, like, finds that Native American mural and he sketches it perfectly and then destroys it. Blood Meridian is not that tough to read, I'd say. Like, I've definitely read everything. Yeah, he wants to own everything. He is colonialism manifest. Well, because that's what colonialism does to the cultures that it takes ownership of. He's not the Antichrist, and he doesn't think he's the Antichrist. The judge is definitely magical in some way. There's a bit where he walks through a fire pit and he's fine. Like, within the fiction of the book, he's coded as being an archon, like a Gnostic archon, but I don't think you're not supposed to interpret him as a literal Gnostic archon. Like, you're not supposed to treat the judge as an evil wizard. You're supposed to treat him as, like, an interesting... You're supposed to treat him as, like, a terrifying human being who represents a lot of things. It's a particularly poignant, in my opinion, aspect of the dream logic of Blood Meridian. You don't have a strong stomach for realistic violence? Yeah, don't read Blood Meridian, then. He is. He's an Archon-coded bald man. Hi, Garden Snail. He's kind of a wolf in man's clothing. No... Like, I don't know. It's like Glanton is a wolf in man's clothing. Like, people draw allusions to the judge as him being like the ultimate dictator, as him being a sort of Hitler figure, but that's not true. It's like Glanton is the Hitler figure. Because Glanton is contracting with the judge in some way. Glanton has clearly taken some sort of Mephistopheles deal in which he has to like kill people as fast as possible to extend his life. Although not literally, like it's just coded that way in the fiction. The kid is a man in a sheep's carcass, IARC, in many sheep's carcasses. Yeah, but it's like Blood Meridian doesn't dip too deeply into explicit allegory, which I often find annoying, where it's like he literally represents this. Like there's a bit in Kafka's The Trial where it's like they look at the book of the law that the judge in that story is reading, and it's like just a porno mag. Like they're not like he's not saying that the law is literally pornography in an allegorical way. He's saying that and Kafka's also not saying that the law is like pornography. He's saying that the law is pornography in a kind of narrative dream logic sense of the term. That it acts as if it was pornography. It functions as pornography. A miracle occurs which transmutes it into pornography until the two are distinct. But what is pornography? It is something that titillates. You have the right to remain titties, Lamau. Get fucking owned. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time. What do you guys think? Let's go! Alright, everyone. Let's do... I still have to grind up this Octavia, so we're just gonna grind a little bit. The war. Today's topic is the transition to the medieval era. So, we've spent the last couple streams talking about antiquity, right? Basically, Plato to the early foundations of Christianity, right? Now, the medieval era is interesting because the story of esotericism in the medieval era is one of like renegade priests and half-converted peoples. Because at a certain point, you've got fucking... who was it? Constantine? Who was like, fuck, the Roman Empire's really in trouble. From what I understand, there's no real scholarly consensus on why he decided to Christianize the empire, the Roman Empire, but it was clearly a political move of some sort. Like, also his mom was a Christian. We're not going to go too deeply into that, but the point is that Christianity started taking over, right? And around when they were like, part of why they were taking over was that the Roman Empire was in a lot of trouble, and I'm probably comically over-exaggerating here. They were in a lot of trouble, and the Catholic Church had one of the largest networks of people in the Mediterranean who knew how to read, right? And obviously, oh, okay. And obviously, maybe real stream seems fine. Is stream frozen? Okay, no, seems good. Okay. So, they had a large network of people who knew how to read, which is very important when you have a society that needs to manage land grants and things like that. And they inherited a Roman Empire that was the Roman Empire of, like, Augustinian and Diocletian, or Augustus and Diocletian, sorry. Hey, thank you for the sub. Or Augustus and Diocletian. Basically, the Roman Empire would just regularly, like, brutally persecute its internal enemies, right? They would just... Augustinian... Or, no, sorry. Augustus. At one point just, like, burned... Like, more... He claimed that he burned more than 2,000 superstitious texts, right? Yes, Constantine's mom destroyed a lot of pagan temples and whatnot in favor of Christian churches. And so they were like, okay, the thing you do is you just, like, brutally persecute your political enemies. The other interesting thing about the transition to the medieval era is we don't have many primary sources. Like, primary sources on medieval magic are few and far between. We don't know very much about them, like why they exist or what they exist to do or the context of their creation. And so medieval magic is a bit of a blank spot in the broad history of esotericism in the West. That's not to say that it doesn't exist, though. Like, the Christians had no interest in recording esotericism. Like, one of the main book that I've been reading about this currently has been Magic at the Crossroads by Richard Kaisheffer, which is about medieval magic. And he does this insanely frustrating thing where he just says, like, there's a book that says this, or there's a book that says this from this century, but he doesn't say what the book is or when it was written or anything else like that. And I find that very annoying. Like, just cite your fucking sources, man. I trust him. His main thing is translating books of esoterica into English. Like, we have a lot of medieval grimoires because of Richard Kaisheffer. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So I trust him when he says that there is a book that says this. I just wish I could fucking read it for myself, because I myself am writing a book. And one of the things that he says is, like, one of the interesting things about the medieval era is they didn't actually receive many books of esotericism, but they received a lot of people writing about esotericism. And they received a lot of fiction which contained magic in it, right? So they didn't have access to, like, the Greek magical papyri, or, like, most people weren't reading the Hermetic corpus or anything like that. But they had relatively easy access to church fathers like Augustinian and Tertullian talking about magic and why it's prohibited, right? There's not Augustinian, fucking the Lord make me chaste but not yet guy. Fucking hell. Hang on, I gotta Google this. Augustine. Saint fucking Augustine. I should know that. God damn it, that was pissing me off. So Augustine of Hippo. So it's like they have a lot of Augustine and Tertullian saying that magic is bad, because obviously the new text for the age is the Bible. It's the damn Bible, and it never mentions magic unless it's saying that it's not allowed. So the average medieval peasant could pretty logically assume that, like, but at the same time, like, so you've got your priest telling you that magic is banned and stop doing magic, stop talking to magicians, stop trying to do magic. But you also might, if you're a noble or something, you might hear someone recite the Odyssey, and you'd hear about Odysseus getting turned into a pig by a witch and whatnot. So the average medieval peasant may rightly assume that witches were a huge problem before Christ showed up. That's definitely not like how everyone saw it, but allow that to give you an example of how magic was generally seen in the medieval era. But also, at the same time, you've got this ascendant Christianity that is trying to suppress its intellectual rivals, these like Greek magical traditions. But at the same time, they are slowly plotting their way up into Europe, where they are converting, Gauls and Germanic tribes and Celts. And that sort of thing took a while, right? So there were several centuries where a lot of people were kind of half converted. Like the 7th century rolls around, and the Christians are sending I'm not sure if they would have been considered missionaries at the time, but related to this, is there a reason why the Irish, etc., got all their myths Christianized, but it didn't happen to the Greco-Roman myths? Yes. So, basically, the Christianity was already kind of based on, like, Greco-Roman mythology. Okay. I say that in a very particular sense. Don't overread that, right? Like, Christianity spent a lot more time in the company of Greco-Roman mythology, so they were like much better at incorporating shit like Plato and Aristotle and like weaving around that. It's like, yeah, we can equate Apollo and Zeus with Christ and do shit like that. The other thing with the Irish that you have to remember is by the time that Christians showed up in the Celtic world, like they had already been a Roman province for like 200 years. So by the time, like, Christianization really, like, got into the swing of things, they had already kind of been Roman polytheists a little bit. Like, they were kind of half converted into Roman polytheists. So, because you have to remember the Roman modus operandi for religious authorities was they would show up in your province or whatever, and they'd say, pay your taxes to the Roman Empire, and the way the Romans saw it was like, oh, everyone already worships the same gods, but they just call them by different names, and they like look different in different lands. Like, obviously, a Celt is going to see Zeus as a Celt, and so they'd show up and just be like, hey, like, just do sacrifices when we ask you to, and refer to your gods in Latin when we're around. And as long as you pay your taxes and send your sons to the military, like, we don't really care. And a lot of people who were colonized by the Romans were just fine with that, right? It wasn't the hugest thing. The Romans didn't like destroying existing temples because it's bad for PR, Yeah, that's true. Riley, that's true. There's a direct influence from Greek culture on both the Pentateuch and the New Testament. Jews as an exception, because the Romans respected anything that was old. But also, like, the Jews that did have a problem with that immediately became a large problem for the Romans. Yeah, pay protection and no one gets hurt type empire, but in a social degree. Like, pay your social protection and no one gets hurt. So by the time that the Christians showed up in Gaul, like, people were just like, whatever, we're going to keep doing our shit. That's fine if you want to... It's fine if you want to call it some different shit. It'll be fine. Who cares? But the Christians weren't trying to convert people in the same way that the Romans were. They were like, no, we're monotheists. And so they had to come up with ways to kind of tell people that their existing magical practices, like, weren't compatible with Christianity, but they also weren't immediately super hard asses about it. Like, one of the major sources for esotericism from this era... Oh no! One of the major sources of esotericism from this era is notes from evangelists to other evangelists. You know, you've got a guy whose job is to walk around and learn about local cultures, figure out how to ingratiate Christianity into them, right? Early example of this, the big one is the fucking Dominican order, right? Priests aren't people who just sit inside and read all the time. Now they have to leave the cloister. They got to go talk to people. They try to model themselves after the apostles, and they're showing up, trying to tell people how to be Christians. And a lot of them were writing notes to each other, saying like, "Hey, if you're going to Gaul, they worship these gods. Sometimes they'll make charms that look like this. Here's just like what you should expect when you're going and traveling to Gaul." Admittedly unrelated, I have to ask, do you actually enjoy the Opticore Vandal? No, not really. I don't like this thing. Oh, this is because all the tales about people being polytheists plus Christians, that's what they were used to when people... Yeah. There was a lot of that. When I say, like, half-converted, that's part of what I mean, where they're like, oh, yeah, we can just totally, like, add Jesus to the pantheon, and they would... The priest would be like, actually, you should... It's like, you should say that Jesus is the only one. But one of the things that Christians at this time did was they tried to replace whatever the local faith healer population was. Like, that was one of their big selling points was. Like, every culture has some form of, like, religious healer. If you want to talk medieval magic, literally, like... 45% of the shit that you can read from this era is like instruction manuals for healing warts with spells and whatnot. And it's shit like people clearly treated Christian liturgies in the same way that they treated like mythology around existing gods, right? You know, so there would be like the two books that Richard Kaischeffer uses are the Munich Manual, which is a late medieval, I think 13th century, don't quote me on that, manual of like honest to God, full-blown summoning the dead, angels and demons, like casting spells with skull fragments and wands type. Like when you think of a grimoire with a big thick leather-bound book and all the big like all the big magic circles and runes and shit, you're thinking of the Munich Manual. It is the grimoire of grimoires. It is a Platonic example of the grimoire. He compares that with a book of household management written in like the high medieval era. You know, it's the medieval equivalent of those books that are like Miss Sunshine's Book of Household Management for Awesome Fucking Young Women. I already have a Masseter. I don't want that. I don't have a NASA Prime subsystems yet, though. I don't think. Okay, Ariel, excellent addition. Praying over illness and also putting a rock on it. One of the big things that they fucking did was they would, there was nonsense liturgies. It would be like, write this on a piece of parchment or something, and then make it into an amulet. And then the parchment is clearly like a heavily corrupted form of a liturgy, of a Christian liturgy, that has like corrupt German and Latin text, where it says some shit like, by the Lord Christ, conks, bonks, wonks, donks, pax, or something. Like, it's clearly like somebody misremembering a liturgy and just treating them as magic words, which is fucking awesome. Hang on, Riley, you said something I want. Lucian's writings where he's talking... Lucian's writing where he's talking about... Talking about Greek-speaking Gauls, and the Gauls explains that their version of Hercules has this frightening appearance that represents the same stuff. Yeah. There's a lot of, like... clearly what are other cultures trying to interpret Christianity, but it's also, this isn't Christianity at its most evangelist. Like, this is not like late medieval, early Renaissance Spanish Catholicism that's like sailing the Atlantic and colonizing the Americas. It hasn't quite hit that same fever pitch yet. They're still having to contend with local religious traditions and figuring out how to compete with them to kind of erode the local religious traditions. There are definitely there's definitely persecution. Do not get me wrong, but it's a different Christianity than the one that we understand at its worst. I still knock on wood, but I make a statement I don't want to jinx that. I don't know if that came from household magic. I'm pretty sure it did. Yeah. Yeah, like that type of thing. And so when Kai Sheffer is, and apologies if I'm not pronouncing his name correctly, when Kai Sheffer is comparing and contrasting this like book of household management, he's talking about how it's like, okay, there's these like highfalutin books of hardcore priestly magic, but there's also like texts of folk magic that are essentially just like folk remedies. Like, that's 99% of what a lot of folk magic is just like folk remedies. Jesus literally used Namina Barbara on the cross. As he's dying, he says, Evoi, Evoi, Lama Sabachthana. Yeah, exactly. It's like, that's a lot. And so one of the really fun sources that we have for this era is people saying like, it's like records from priests saying things like, hey, sorcerers are not using magic to levitate boats and then sail into your fields at night and to steal the fruit off of your trees. That's not real. Stop believing in this superstitious nonsense. And there's missives from priests chiding their lower level priests, like people who work under them, for like being worried about sorcerers and shit. But the tone is interestingly like proto-rationalist. Like they talk about believing in French weather wizards with their flying boats as if it's like, oh, only idiots believe in that sort of thing, whereas we have the true healing power of Christ. They take an interesting angle on it that I was not expecting. And even back in like the 7th century, people were talking about like, well, obviously my religion is the correct one, and all the other ones are false. Like, it's simply true. You're still scared of sorcerers? BGM, they're literally going to steal your fruit. Unless you pray right now, French sorcerers with flying boats that they're using sorcery to control the weather are going to steal your fucking fruit. It will happen. Pray now. Pray immediately. Pray forever. It is known among the wise. And so that's kind of... who do I pray for? Yourself. You're fucked, buddy. It's gonna happen to you. Welcome to the chat, Cappy Orb. You are fucked, and the wizards are coming for your fruit trees. Similarly, I was surprised when listening to a lecture series about proto-atheism about how much late Middle Ages and early modern people were going on about rationalism and superstition. Yeah, absolutely. Totally. I saw a fucking post on Tumblr today that was like, this is why I consider, like, anti-theism a fascist talking point. It's like, anti-theism was invented by like a French anarchist, you fucking dumbass. Shut up. Like, people have always been thinking about like, people have always been resistant to superstition. Like, people aren't fucking stupid. If you tell them like you can heal wounds with magic words, there's always going to be people who are like, I think that's bullshit. I think you're just lying to me. Do I have an Orthos? Yeah, I have an Orthos. Not just contrarian, but like people have always had critical thought. My snake oil actually works. Yeah, people love superstition, and also to call other people's superstition stupid. But even medieval Christians at the time were, like, resistant to the exact kind of superstitions that persisted through the medieval era and made up a lot of what is now, like, the medieval grimoire tradition. It's very interesting. So there's the medieval era is also where we see, like, if you're active on, like, any like witchcraft or magic spaces on the internet, you there's constant discourse about this divide between, you know, low magic and high magic. Like the type of magic that the illiterate poors were practicing versus the magic that the literate elites were practicing. That really becomes a thing in this era. Because the only people who were actually practicing and writing down books of spells in the medieval era were intellectuals of some sort. And that means intellectuals in the sense of, like, people who had the money, influence, and free time to learn how to read, to pay someone to teach them how to read. Hi, Millie. Welcome to chat. And so the main two groups of people who could do that in the medieval era were the children of the nobility and priests. And so a lot of the magic of the medieval era has this kind of, like, collected folk magic and household management dint to it. That's I forget what the manual is called. I will find it if you're curious after the stream. I'll put it in the Discord. Use command !Discord to join the Discord if you're not already in it. You can get updates, talk to other people, do some reading. We have a little bit of a book club going. Is like, so you've got people doing this, like, book of household magic where it's like cures for warts and coughs and how to attract all the rats in your house so you can kill them, that type of thing. Or it's priests. Strewn, Bronco, Burston. I'll take a Bronco, whatever. Actually, I'll take a Lex. I don't got a Lex. How to blast snakes, exactly. But, so, okay, Richard Kaischeffer is where we get the term clerical necromantic underground, which is a badass term. I have, like, tiny, itty-bitty little baby nitpicks with it. Like, it sounds a little too cool. And it implies that there was, like, a secretive network of, like... It almost implies a secret society of, like, clerical authority... Like, low-level clerics in the church that are producing and translating these, like forbidden texts. And I don't think that's true, but I also don't think that's what Kaischeffer is arguing for. So... Hang on, let me collect my thoughts. The actual relationship of clerics to esotericism of the period were diverse and mysterious. There is a lot of room for speculation, but that doesn't mean that we can't do good speculation, right? So I mentioned earlier that one of the major sources from this era is, like, evangelists writing letters to each other saying, if you're traveling to Gaul, here's what the local religious practices are. My thought, and this is speculation on CT's part, my thought is that you've got people collecting these, like, local magical traditions, but as the generations progress, I think you've also got, like, you know, if, let's say a cleric travels to Gaul, meets a local Gallic woman, and has a beautiful medieval French baby. And then that French baby grows up to be a priest, but he's still half converted. He has like a Frisian pagan mom and not Frisian, that's the English, that's Old English. He has an old French mom, and he has like a Latin Christian dad. And so as he's going through seminary, his understanding of the local traditions is inevitably going to be colored by his upbringing, by his understanding of local religious traditions. And so there's going to be remnants of that in his writing. You know, so maybe when he's practicing, let's say the house that he lives in, like, asks if someone has a cure for warts. And so he writes down a cure for warts in some extra parchment at the not the seminary, but the scribe house thing that he's working at. And thus, over time, people collect these fragments into larger texts of magic. Very similar to the Greek magical papyri. The Greek magical papyri was not intended to be a single thing. It was a bunch of fragments that were assembled into what is now the Greek magical papyri, that are clearly from many different places and people and time periods. When people talk about grimoires, that's also what it is. It is what is the French term for it? A sort of, not bric-a-brac. Hi, world's smallest creature. Welcome to chat. And that the neo-pagans who consider themselves from a line of purely pagan holdouts are probably not entirely correct. Well, that, like, purely anything hodgepodge, it's like, purely anything does not happen in religion. Like, that, unless you are the most orthodox of the orthodox. And even then, like, that changes. Religion is primarily a cultural institution. It is for preserving ideas and structures it is for preserving ideas. But another part of religion is they are inherently flexible things. When they spread and change, as people spread and change, they inevitably pick up elements of the cultures that they are spreading and changing into. The purpose of a culture is to mongrelize. And religions are much the same way. As much as... Yes, ma'am? Hi. Why are you making little baby noises at me? Hi, sweetheart. Sorry, my cat is being very cute. Bricolage, that's the one. Yes, and so... The other thing with the Catholic Church at this point in history is that they had bigger fish to fry. This is the period in history where, like, the East-West split just happened. They're constantly dealing with internal splits. Because the other thing is that if you have a religion that prides itself on, like... Where is everyone? On a centralized authority, information is hard to... Like, communication is difficult. You have to give a guy a letter and have him walk from... I don't know, fucking... You have to have him walk from fucking Galilee to Gaul. That takes months, and it's very dangerous. And so it's pretty easy for church authorities to kind of make their own decisions about shit, and then that can get out of hand, and you get things like the constant need for ecumenical councils about rogue preachers making strange decisions about things. So the average, like, let's say one guy in a small town in Gaul writing a book that, like, invokes Christ with some nomina barbara, or barbarous names. There's an impressive term for magic words, if you want to use that at a party. So some guy in Gaul writing a book with some nomina barbara is not going to be the biggest... It's not going to be the biggest problem on their plate. And so a lot of things are kind of allowed to slip through the cracks for purposes of resource constraints. Yeah, they just broke up with the Greeks. They're having a hard time. They're the Latin Church is eating cartons of ice cream by the mouthful. It's a terrible time for everyone. Nomina Barbara would be a beautiful name for a baby girl. Yay. Psylocke, Ureli. Someone's grinding for Ureli. So those are our big two, like, strains of medieval magic. We've got this, like, half-converted priest class that is grinding on my what? On your Urelli, Ellie. Ellie's Urelli. So, okay, you've got this half-converted priest class, and you've got, like, pagan laity. And an enormous current between the both of them is just, like, cures for warts. The other thing is, like, people, when the Christians show up in your small town, and you're like, you worship Jesus now, he's the only God, here's how the saints work, it took several generations for people to, like, get it. You know, they were like, oh, okay, we'll just add them to the pantheon. The priests are like, no, that's not how it works. You've got to do other shit. You've got to come to mass. Yeah, and then the next priest is like, what do you mean it's heresy? It's literally what the last guy taught me. And then it's like, they sent a guy down from the Vatican, or it wouldn't be the Vatican yet. I don't know where the fuck it would be. I think we're still in, like, the Pentarchy era? I'm not sure. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. There's a guy from Rome who's, like, trying to shore up all that, like, trying to cut the fat. He says we're not allowed to, like, make manuscripts of St. Thomas and then put them on pregnant people to help them give birth, because that's quote-unquote magic and not allowed. So the twist and pentiment that your saints were secretly pagan gods reskinned isn't all that out there. I haven't played Pentiment. I think people can kind of... I think people kind of over-exaggerate the whole saints are just reskinned pagan gods thing, because that's not... Like, okay. One of the ways that the Christians, like, would win converts is, like... Okay, when the Romans showed up, they would have, like, a Roman priest, and they would say, like, okay, you can convert to Roman polytheism, or we can set you on fire. Do you think that your god will save you from the fire? If you don't, you can just pray to Zeus, because Zeus is awesome. Zeus will give you mercy. And, you know, the random 6th century Armenians were like, yeah, fine, whatever, man. I'll pray to Zeus. I'll call my god Zeus. I don't really care about it that much. But if they would show up and say that shit to the Christians, where it was like, listen, you can pray to Zeus, or we can set you on fire, the Christians were like, yes! Yes, please! And the Romans were like, what the fuck, dude? Chill. Because that's, like, the coolest thing that you can do in Christianity, is, like, get killed for being a Christian. To the point where the Christians had to be like, okay, you can't just, like, throw rocks at a Roman centurion until they kill you. That doesn't make you a saint. You have to, like, you have to be persecuted. You can't just piss someone off. Please martyr me! Like... That's so okay. Once this, I think syncretism with the saints was just kind of a natural evolution, but that wasn't how the Christians were trying to sell them, right? I think that came out of the sort of half-converted lay priest, or not lay priest, but like came out of the like half-converted, like, you know, people showing up in your country and like people trying to use their existing religion as a map to understand Christianity. I think that's where a lot of that comes from. But the saints were very much, like, directly in competition with the local priesthood, because that's how a lot of early Christian evangelists figured out how to slot themselves into medieval European society, was they didn't try to, like, debate your priests with facts and logic. They would replace your local faith healing population. You know, whatever your local medicine, like, healer, faith doctor thing was. The priest would be like, dude, don't you fucking worry. We've got a whole, like, religious tradition of healing people. So they'd have saints come up and they would, like, invoke Christ to have an exorcism. And that's how they sold that shit, right? They'd say, no. you're not sick because of all this other shit. You're sick because there's demons in you. And people be like, what? There's demons in me? Can you do something about it? And they're like, fuck yes, we can. We know the guy who's king of all demons, and all you have to do is say his name, and he'll, like, sneeze the demon out of you. And people were like, that's fucking awesome. And because a lot of these guys had access to, like, Roman medical technology, which was ever so slightly better than whatever the local, like, herbal healing tradition was, they gained a reputation as doctors, right? Yes, Bartholomew is the one that got skinned. He's the Armenian one who got skinned. Yeah, they were, like, undercutting the competition. And that's how they got it in. Because, like, once you do that, once it's like, dude, there's these people who can get any demon out of you, they would be able to be like, and by the way, what are other things about Jesus? Yes, that's why RPG priests are the healer class. Exactly. Oh, does Thomas also get skinned in the Apocrypha? I didn't know that. That's interesting. Where does he get skinned? Oh, I need to sneeze. Fuck. Okay, we've all got this shit. Yeah, okay. Acts of Thomas. Okay, dope. Cool. The other thing from this era is, like, we have... The other big arm of this is the mythological traditions, right? A lot of the sources from this period are, like, historical epics and mythology that usually were oral, but were written down in the medieval era, usually by priests who thus Christianized them. Hi, Leafy Lady. Welcome to the stream. Bye, Requiem. Have fun. So that brings us to, like, Irish mythology and Norse mythology, who were the two of the big targets for evangelism in the area. And that shit is interesting because some of the later sagas that we get, like, they have sorcerers in them. Like, they have indigenous Norse sorcerers in them, but I forget which sagas they are. I'm not up on my sagas. But the narrative frames them as, like, boomers who are still clinging to outdated traditions. But their magic is still real, you know? Yeah, Beowulf is a great example of this, where it's like, there are magicians, but they're like weird boomers who are behind the times, and Christ is just kind of a better magician. That's a great example of how Christianity was kind of seen for the time, because, like, these priests that had to, like, literally cross Europe and establish a beachhead for Christianity over the course of generations were like, fine, that's good, that's close enough. We'll take that, we'll keep pushing. That's acceptable for now. Beowulf has a very Christian ending, and that's, like, a common thing with a lot of mythology of the time is, like, it's like pagan, 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 and then you get to the last 10% and it's suddenly really Christian because some priest is like, we need to make this really Christian. That happens in the Canterbury Tales where, like, I think that there's that bit in the Canterbury Tales where it's, like, literally making fun of that as if, because the last story is, like, a long, extremely boring, preachy story from a priest who talks about how awesome Jesus is and how cool it is that he's the last guy. Yeah, very similar to how Muslims depict Islam as, like, the cool, new, rational gospel. Like, and, like, that's even more built into Islam than it is to Christianity, because, like, Islam very clearly sells itself as, like, this is the gospel that will solve all of the existing problems with Christianity and Judaism. Like, oh, there's all the... Because, like, a lot of the, like... Muslims saw the existing issues with Judaism and Christianity, and they were like, clearly interested in solving them. And so they're like, don't worry, we've got a new prophet. We've got a blank slate here. We found the original one. What was your favorite tale in Canterbury? I can't remember the Canterbury Tales too well. I read them in like middle school or some shit. Right? I read like an abridged version in middle school, so don't trust anything I say about the Canterbury Tales. I love this song. Dos Lunas. Just one more schism, dude. I promise we'll fix it this time. I promise. The Canterbury Tales are fun. So is Beowulf. I think this is also the era where, like, there's a lot of, like, mythology around Norse runes. Yeah, there's a lot of mythology around Norse runes that are, like... There's the example that Kai Scheffer uses from the sagas is, like, there's like a woman who is sad that her husband dies, and she tries to, like, write runes on some whalebone to cast a spell to bring him back to life. And the guy is like, no, you've written the runes all wrong. And then he writes the correct runes on the whalebone, and it does work to bring the guy back to life. And this is during a period where the region was supposedly quite Christian. Although, I think partially due to its proximity to Rome, like, the Northern Europe, like, that corner of Northern Europe was, like, one of the last regions to be Christianized. Although one of my favorite examples of, like, half Christianity in this era is, like, all the shit that you get with Irish mythology. Is all the shit you get with Irish mythology. Like, the example that Kai Scheffer uses, this bit from, like, it's like people, it's like there's a tomb of ancient Irish kings, and each body is watched over by an angel who looks like a beautiful young woman. It's just shit like that. It's like, that's awesome. I wish Christianity had more shit like that, where it's like a hill, like one of these like earthen Irish tombs in which ancient Irish kings are buried, and each one is watched over by a beautiful female angel. That type of shit rules. And the oracles do give him accurate predictions, but Garino just interprets this as God sending him a message through the pagan oracles. Interesting. Excellent example of people just kind of doing whatever with Christian mythology. Not just a whole angel for your tomb. Each king gets an angel. I've always thought that was very interesting, where it was like... It shows a genuine care for the pagan population of, like, no, dude, we love your fucking kings. Like, each one gets an angel. Like, God loves your kings. The longest Greek epic is about Dionysus conquering India through revelry, and it was written by a Christian named Nonos. And the angels are lesing out. Yes, that's true. But for later esoteric history, the thing that really gets picked up here is the grimoire tradition. It's like the priestly aspects of magic, where it's like adjuring angels and shit. You know, was it Tara Mound? It might have been. I don't know. Fucking Kai Scheffer doesn't mention the names of any of these damn texts, so that's very possible. All right. We're an hour in, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're going to take a quick break. Let me exit this mission. New Yuri anime about lesbian angels guarding the tombs of Irish kings. Excellent first-time message. Think of some cool discussion questions for when I get back from break, all right? Uh, okay. Sorry, I'm reading a thing in my other monitor. Yay! Yay! Max rank Octavia! Yay! I can feed her to my dog now. Oh, we should check out what Barrow has. We'll do that after break. Okay, on break. Hello. Wow. Let me see. What have you guys been saying? Do the things people want grimoires to do change with the strength of Christianization? I would actually say no. Like, I don't think it does. I think the general structure of most of the grimoires that I've read are like... Honestly, the things that people want out of magic is like the healing of illnesses. Yeah, it's like healing of illnesses, love spells, dealing with animals, crops, a lot of crops. But I think what changed with Christianization is like there's sort of an additional layer of, what do you want to call it? Like Christianized mythology and metaphysics in it. Like the angel as a sort of general purpose thing that can be adjured. Cure disease, fuck bitches, get money. Exactly. But okay, you got me thinking though. It's like, if there is something that changed, what would it be? Okay, we need calcs and biotics. Ars Goetia way later. Well, okay, no, a lot of the material of the Goetia is like... Oh, wait, you're responding to something, sorry. The idea that summoning a demon is a deal that implies selling your soul as a way to Christianize old, like, deal with the devil tradition from the Goetia, right? I don't think that came from the Goetia. I'm not entirely sure where the whole, like, devil deal thing came from. Because the Goetia, like, the Goetia has its roots in, like, Greco-Roman, like, evocator traditions. Goodbye, Octavia. I did that because I have an Octavia Prime, by the way. She is still here, do not worry. Yay! Yay! Isn't Goetia the Renaissance derogatory term for medieval wizards? I believe Goetia, like, Goes comes from whaler. Like it comes from fucking, a Greek term for, like, it does come, it comes from the term for a classical Greek kind of magician who manipulates spirits. But one of the biggest changes when you hit the Renaissance is that, like, Pico della Mirandola saw medieval magic as, like, backwards and... what do you want to call it? Not backwards. He saw it as, like, childish. Oh, she's getting down. Right. And now, we're going to be grinding Titania Prime! Yay! I'd argue they're more concerned with demons because they conceptualize them a lot differently than earlier grimoires who consider them both benefic and malefic. Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. That's a good point. Because it's like... The whole, like, angels are good spirits and demons are bad spirits was probably that was definitely a change. Yeah, that's a good point. I think the introduction of the concept of the demon was an important change for medieval magic. Yeah, Goetia is the art of conjuring spirits through evocation and invocation. Is the weird shit in Arthuria Christian esotericism? I think it's more like Christian mythology. I'm not an expert on Arthuria. I know follow a lot of Arthuria perverts on Tumblr. Christianity IMO begins partially as a new type of exorcism cult. I would actually say that a lot of the exorcism elements of Christianity were already present in Judaism. Like that's a if you look back into history, it's like exorcism is a very Jewish thing. I would actually argue that it's Jews that introduced the concept of exorcism to the Greeks. But in that sense, you could definitely call Christianity partially as a new exorcism cult, and that's definitely what made it popular in pagan Europe. Okay, I don't really know how to build for a Titania. I'm just throwing on all my, like, standard ones. Adaptation, Energy Nexus, Prime Continuity, Intensify. So weird because contemporary Judaism is rather anti-exorcism. I think partially because Christianity is so, like, they love exorcism so much. Like, I think a lot of the, like, pulling back from that within contemporary Judaism is, like, them seeing the Christians and going, like, let's not do that. I think you can build her to CC or to her exalted guns. I really like her exalted guns, so I'll do that. Yeah, we don't play with that anymore. Let's throw on a Prime Flow also. Okay. Opticore Vandal. And now I've got whatever this is. I've never played with a Convectrix before. I guess we'll do Prime Tactical Pump. And I don't know. Do Point Blank. And Ravage. They do have the auto install option. Where is that? I don't know how to do anything. It is in actions. Auto install. Sinister Reach, Chilling Grasp, Point Blank, Ammo Mutation. Interdasting. Primary fire converges beams when held. Oh, it's a beam weapon! I don't even know what this is. I'm just grinding. Just want to shill Discerning Spirits by Nancy. Oh, how do we go in esoteric traditions from Solomon binding demons to Faust being bound to a demon? I think that's how the old medieval traditions were harmonized with the... Oh, interesting. Oh, man, I forgot how fucking jumpy Titania is. Nyum. Nyum. Let's go say hi to Barrow. Huh. Yeah, Shadowcat, Ariel, you brought up something good. How do we go in esoteric traditions from Solomon binding demons to Faust being bound to a demon? And I think that's how the old medieval traditions were being harmonized with the more modern views of demons. I think there's some truth to that. Like, I don't know... I've never read Faust. I should. Yeah, yeah, exorcism is definitely very essential for early Christians. That is until they... Thought they invented exorcism? Yeah, yeah. They definitely claimed a unique prowess for it. Did you guys see that? There was a tiny guy. There was a tiny man. I've been told you have to read Goethe in the original German, but I don't speak German, so I can't do that. Let's see. Hide owned. Got that. Got that. 3-day affinity booster. Oh, prime dual rounds. That's good. Fucking... Got that, got that, got that. Okay. Alright, let's do Void Surplus. Whoa! Very good. I'll fucking take that. I got a tato. Got an Ortho. Got a Vasto. I've got a Tetsu. Got a Vasto. I don't think I have an Icarius. I've got a Corinth. Definitely got a Fang. Got a Galatine. I don't know if I have a Cronin. Oh, wait, I think I'm trying to craft an Akvasto. I should check that first. Let's see, Wisp. I have Wisp. Tigris, Tiburon. Got Baruch. Got Hildren. You can middle mouse click on things to select the entire stack. Oh, cool. Okay. Actually, I recently spilled some fucking juice on my mouse, and the middle mouse button is not working too well anymore. I should make a list of primes for quick cross-referencing. I just haven't gotten around to it. It's Larkspur, right? Yeah. Even Dionysiac madness is described as God confounding your perceptions of things. Yup. Also, like, Greek philosophy and Greek esotericism in general, they fucking love, like, the concept of perception and its relationship to divinity. I mean, Riley, they definitely say it in that way at some point. Like, even if it is being literally possessed by the gods, like, they are. When that happens, it changes your perception. I think that's the point that Ariel is making. I don't know. I don't want to speak for Ariel. Ariel, if you said something wrong, it's not my fault for backing you up, okay? I don't have enough money. Fuck. Yup, it's index time. To Neptune. This stream is fun as somebody who doesn't know what Warframe is. Yes, we are playing Warframe. And this is a toys game. The reminder that Warframe is an MMO jump scared you. Yeah. How many Hero... Oh yeah, I should sell all my fucking Hero chassis blueprints. Kill Profit Taker. Kill. It's 2 million for a Profit Taker kill? What? I actually do... Okay, we should probably do that next. I need to be grinding Profit Taker anyway for Hildren shit. I need the orbs she drops. Is Profit Taker the one that has a bounty, or is Profit Taker the one that you can just like fight in the world? Hildren is Exploiter. Damn it! I have all the Hildren parts. I need the Azure shit that like the orbs that one of them drops. Like I've gotten Hildren's blueprints from other various things. I just need the parts to make them. The toroids, that's the one. Frequently, rituals and hymns and plays depict the process of ethnosis, literally calling the gods in to take control and speak and act through a priest or priestess, is so huge and it's all over. They absolutely have magic illusion and perception, but they do believe that what their religious act calls them... takes and possesses them. Yeah. Prophet Taker is Charisma. Yeah, I need Azure. Hi, Mr. Horizons. Yay! 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 One of the interesting things that I read about was like, so the Greeks didn't like magic because it was antisocial, right? It was like, it's fine to worship the gods as long as you do it like in public with everyone else. Like if you started like building a shrine in your house and not letting other people see it, that was fucking weird. Like that's why they didn't trust magic. But like once Christianity starts taking over, they didn't trust magic because not because it was antisocial, but because it was demons. I'm in the ceiling. You're a freak for having a personal shrine. Exactly. Greeks and Romans had household shrines all the time. Yes, but it was like permitted types of shrines. You weren't doing like secret rituals for your household shrine, right? And you weren't getting into the woods away from other people. It was like there was a non-normative aspect of it. At the same time, it was like there definitely were mystery cults and people like understood that that was a thing that happened. I don't think it was seen with the same like vitriol. Like I don't think it was seen with the same vitriol as Christians talking about demons though. I think it was more just like, that's weird, why are you doing that? I never got the sense that I never really got the sense that the Greeks were like, magic is evil. you wanted somebody... If I went to somebody's house and they had a miniature Catholic church in their basement, I would also think they're a little weird. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, what are you doing there, dog? And they're just like, trust me, it's normal. I have a normal church in my basement, and I don't do weird things with it. Yeah, I guess even a mystery cult can be seen as a type of society, but it's also just like... I think people are inherently mistrustful of mysteries in general, like secretive activities. Hey, whatever you're doing with Neptune in your basement is weird, alright? Like, there's a perfectly good shrine of Neptune down the street, so what's the problem, buddy? What are you doing? What are you doing in your basement? Oh, is the public shrine of Neptune not good enough for you? He's not a household god. To be fair, many magicians are scammers. Yes, absolutely. That is also prevalent in a lot of medieval magic. It's like people just saying, like, I will use my magic powers to guarantee 300% APY. Stop fucking Neptune in your basement! No, it's not Neptune. It's my special basement Neptune. It's different. It's a different aspect, a different epithet. I wouldn't want a shrine to Neptune in my basement. That feels like a bad choice for your special basement shrine. Like, he seems pretty capricious in a lot of the mythology. I don't think he would like being in the basement. That's the thing. I guess, yeah, if your basement is prone to flooding, that would be a good place for a shrine. Building a shrine to Neptune in my yucky flooded basement with mold. Clone. I don't want to play this. Wait, do I? No, not really. I don't want to play this anymore. Clone. I guess, yeah, he's the... But horses are also not a basement activity. Weren't temples literally homes to the gods? Seem presumptive to try and keep an Olympian in your basement. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, he's got a damn house, and it's way nicer than yours. Welcome to chat, by the way. Hexmeister Meister Hexer? That's a great name. Horses aren't a basement activity? Don't put horses in your basement, especially not for Neptune. What shall we do next? What shall we do next? I should check Nightwave, though. Not to brag, but I am almost done filling my basement with gasoline. Always wonder what the deal is with horses and water. I know, I used to know what that was, but I forgot. There is, like, some... there is some connection with them. I forget what the fuck it is, though. Would you build a shrine to Neptune in your horse-themed bathroom? Oh, pet your dog? I can do that. Pet. Pet animal. I love my cool animal. Wasn't Poseidon father of horses or something? I don't know. There's probably some Greek mythology pervert out there who knows. Cool. Pressure point fury. Neato. Not putting Hecate in your basement, that's asking for trouble? From what I understand, there's like... there are very few actual historical references to Hecate. Like, we know basically nothing about what that supposedly was. Got a ghoul purge, we got a thermia fractures, we got whatever this is. Yeah, Hades seems like the right guy for a basement shrine. He is a chthonic deity. You should check out the 10 live relay. Okay. Whatever you say. Alright. Do you have any thoughts on the upcoming Satan Warframe? I've heard that there's a devil demon, a malicious devil demon Warframe. What the fuck is that, dog? What? Do we just look at it? Huh. It's in a broken up sentient ship, too. I think it's saying something, but I have the dialogue turned down a lot. This is also lagging something fierce. Yeah, I'm hearing the music. The music is nice. It kind of sounds like Evanescence. Bobblehead is back there behind the podium. I'll get it. I'll get it. Is it possible to get the new demon frame yet? It's called Uriel, right? The fabled U Warframe? Not in the game yet? Yeah. See, there's a ton of Hecate stuff. We have an okay amount of information on Hecate. Less than most other Hellenic gods, but she's kind of semi-subsumed into Artemis. See, I thought that was like a spurious thing. I thought a lot of that was like, we're not actually sure that it's... I've heard about the Anatolian stuff, but I've heard that it's like, we're not sure if that's actually Hecate or not. I could totally be wrong there. It looks kind of like Hunhao. White woman. White woman spotted. All those lunar spells in the PGM are made out to Artemis Hecate. Yeah, I knew about that. Alright. Cool. There was an NPC that was like a sentient that had little spectacles that was very cuteness. I would like to meet that chap. He looked quite cuteness. And had much of it. The next big update does look really interesting. I'm really glad that they're developing the sentients too. They're such an interesting faction in this game, and I feel like the old war didn't like flesh them out enough. What shall we do before we wrap up? Why don't we check what I have in the oven? Rankin's book on Hecate and that classics journal on Hecate rule. Oh yeah, Rankin does have a book on Hecate. That's right. I should pick that shit up. Let's grind. Erisakad. Do you know about us getting ults? No. Tell me about that. Focus school ults. Oh. Can you only use them as operator? Remains to be seen. Interesting. I gotta watch this damn TennoCon thing. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. Yeah, I basically, like, don't use the focus system. Like, at all. I probably should. I don't actually know how to use Titania all that much, except for the fact that she can tiny. And the fact that she can tiny is pretty cool and wise, and I know many things about it. But I don't know what her other 3 buttons do. If you don't know, she can go tiny, and it's pretty cool and wise. She uses her wisdom to go tiny and shoot little guns that are too big and small for her little fingers. I guess my next step with the medieval magic stuff is I want to track down more interesting sources for a compare and contrast. And also, the more I read about the medieval era, the more it's like, oh, there's like eras within this that I am not immediately familiar with, and I want to see how it can be further subdivided into like early, high, and late medieval. Because I know, like a large part of the Kaishefer text is, like, talking about, like, Norse magic and how magic was seen in the Norse Eddas and whatnot. But it's, like, how magic was seen in fiction and, like, shit like the sagas and the Eddas is not necessarily how magic was seen in real life. So that's, like, as a historian, that's a real dangerous place to be in, of being like, well, this is how the Norse people saw magic. It's like, well, no, that's just how this fiction depicts magic. Like, yeah, the Roman era had like the Aeneid and the Odyssey, but they didn't think that they didn't necessarily think that Circe was like real, you know? They didn't think that people still had those powers, necessarily. Or that it was... If some people did, it wasn't necessarily widespread or the same across everyone, like, all of medieval Christendom. Yeah, there is a degree to which, like, yeah, every major era is packed into several eras, and the distinctions that we're drawing between them are largely arbitrary, but still, it's like, I feel like my knowledge of the medieval era is one of my weakest... my weakest understandings on part of history. Oh, no, I got this glitch. Yeah, this book called The Dungeon Master's Guide describes how the 21st century Americans saw magic. Exactly. Although it is not far off. It's like, you look at some like witchcraft blogs on Tumblr and shit, and it's like, dude, this is D&D. You're basing your theology on D&D. Like, I don't know if there's anything necessarily wrong with that. It just doesn't quite have the same swag as, like, basing your theology on the PGM or whatever. I don't know. I just want to encourage people to approach the sources, because they're not... Like, if you put the time in to really understand the sources, they will give back to you. It will deepen your understanding of how religion works as an element of a culture. Also, I think it would make more, like... I think it would make more witches anti-theists if they, like, learned how the religions that they are participating in actually functioned in the real world. Like, yeah, like, Wicca never killed anyone, but, like, a lot of religions, a lot of these, like, supposedly, like, pre-Christian pagan religions were very problematic. Norse paganism is extremely homophobic, like, shockingly homophobic. Wicca hasn't killed anyone yet. Well, Wicca also doesn't have institutions, which I think is, like, that's a significant leg up in my opinion. I think if you can have a religion without having institutions, I think you're kind of winning. That's that. If you gotta do religion, don't have institutions. Babak Chonian on your team, all right. I was reading a thing about the sagas the other day, and apparently, like, in medieval Norse culture, if you were seen crying in front of another man, you were immediately third gendered. Like, you literally weren't a man anymore. It was, like, almost worse than being gay. Italians think of magic as like, no, magic isn't real. Yes, my grandma removed my evil eye. Those two things are not in contradiction or even related, really. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, there was a poll recently. It was like, how many Americans believe in telepathy or extrasensory perception? And it's like 30% say yes. And there's like all these people on Twitter like freaking out about like, we have to bring back like fedora atheism. It's like, one, shut up. No, we don't. Like we can do a new principled form of anti-theism and atheism for the 2025 era. But also it's like, don't freak out about polls like that. It's like, oh, people are so fucking stupid. It's like, one, the question is clearly like phrased uncharitably, or it's like, I think if you phrased it as, do you believe that there are some people who have psychic powers? Like, I think a lot fewer people would say yes. Because when people say, like, hey, do you believe in extrasensory perception, sometimes known as telepathy? What people's, like, a lot of people's reaction is, like, I don't necessarily think it's real, but I'm not against the possibility of that existing. Like, we don't really understand how the human mind works, and I'm not categorically against the idea that people can do things with their brain that I don't necessarily know about. Which, is kind of hedging the actual question. Like, I think it's still nonsense and people still can't do that. But that's how a lot of people understand shit like psychometry and magic powers. The other thing is, like, what, 30% of people think telepathy is real? I was like, that's way less than I thought it was gonna be. Like...
Reinforcements available. Do you choose to leave now or continue fighting? We're done here. The extraction team will take over from here. Time to evacuate.
I don't know. I do think it's important to get to that point where it's like... I feel like at a certain point, telling people that, like, ghosts are real is just lying to them. Because I think a lot of the people who say shit like, oh... Like, a lot of the people on Tumblr who are, like, saying shit like, oh, ghosts are real, and I commune with the dead, and I talk to earth spirits and stuff. It's like, gun to your head. Like, it's like, have you spoken to earth spirits before? Gun to your head. I think a lot of people would be just like, no, not literally. I don't think I am literally talking to another I don't think I'm literally talking to another intelligence, like another intelligent being that I have a relationship with. But also, the thing that you're doing is, like, I don't know, smoking a bunch of mushrooms and going out and, like, putting compost in the woods, which is a badass thing to do. And if you see elves while you're doing that, that's also badass. Like, that makes it way cooler. Like, I think you can I think you're allowed to draw that distinction, you know? Elves is literally real. You can see them in the park. Like, I don't know. People take this... I feel like a lot of people in online magic spaces kind of... They talk about magic being real in such a weird performative way, where it's like, they say like, yes, magic is real, and people can do it, and it's all these things, and I'm part of a community of people that believes in magic and does magic. But then you ask them, like, what it actually is. Like, okay, how do you actually define magic? What is it, like, what is the difference between, like, magic and nonsense? Like, where do you draw the line? It's like, oh, well, magic is actually just, like, a name that you use for this collection of material phenomena that has, like, personal and cultural meaning to me. It's like, okay, but is that magic, though? Like, is that literally believing in it? Or is that, like, do you actually just have, like, a nuanced appreciation for a type of behavior that is being called magic? Okay, there's the people that want Harry Potter, but there's also, like, another layer of people on top of that who are, like, equally as derisive of the people who want magic like Harry Potter. Like, the type of people who are saying, like, magic doesn't work like that. It's ba 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 ba, or whatever. But also, don't really have... I'm sounding derisive, and I don't want to be. Like, I think there's a significant population of people who just don't have the methodological tools to really analyze their relationship to the concept of magic. Like, so they see these people who are... Like, this is a person who is invested in the concept of magic. But they see these, like, kind of Harry Potter people. And they recognize a bit of themselves in the other. They're like, well, I don't want to be like that. And so they develop a slightly more complex, slightly more obscure... They start fleeing the Harry Potter archetype. And they create this slightly more complex, slightly more nuanced understanding of magic, but without ever really divorcing it from the idea of, like, believing in a thing that isn't true. Does that make sense? I am being a bit of a hater here, but it's like a principled haterism for a thing that I think is interesting and have like partially dedicated my life to discussing. Your thoughts on hypnosis, if that's something you're knowledgeable on? The collection of practices a community does. I think there are definitely magical practices that have like a materialist basis, and that's where shit. I think that's where the concept of magic is most interesting, where it's like developing ritual and mythology around a material practice that you understand is material. I think that's why tarot is so interesting. You know, like if I do a tarot reading for you, I don't believe in magic, and you don't believe in magic, and yet it can still feel like we're telling the future with cards. And that's super fucking interesting to me. I think that's fascinating. Like, you can approach it from a completely materialist perspective and still be like, okay, but what we're doing right now is participating in magic. Like, and both of us understand that. And that's fascinating to me. And I feel like a lot of people never get to the point where they want to acknowledge what they're doing is fake. Like, they want there to be some invisible substance that you're manipulating in the tarot deck. They want it to be like, oh no, I'm channeling some actual invisible energy that is simply poorly understood. Like I'm manipulating something when you're really not. The thing that you're manipulating is like it's partially psychological and cultural and somatic and everything. Like it exists in this weird place between your body and your mind. And so you don't have to believe in magic for tarot to work. In fact, I think tarot only works if you don't believe in magic, right? Because if you believe in magic, you end up ascribing undue importance to the cards, right? You end up saying things like, it's like, well, this is clearly evidence of some sentient being speaking to me, and not us kind of yes-anding the random noise of the universe, which we are equating with God.
Reinforcements available. Do you choose to leave now?
Reject Cartesianism. Yes, exactly. Yeah, like the Sesame Row guy. The Sesame Row guy is better at cartomancy than like every fucking witch blog on Tumblr. He understands it. Like, it is such a deft and interesting manipulation of the concept of cartomancy. Hypnosis is fascinating, yeah. For similar reasons, I would say. Yay, Nightwave.
Don't stop believing, dreamers.
Like, the interesting... Like, okay, I don't believe in magic, right? What's fascinating about tarot is that you can make a bad tarot deck, even by my standards. I think that's fucking fascinating. Like, okay, if magic isn't real, what does it mean to have a bad tarot deck or a good tarot deck? What makes a tarot deck good? Okay, but like your bad tarot deck is only the Eight of Poops. Like it's just 60 copies of the Eight of Poops. If you add one tower to the tower to a deck that is 88s of Poops, it's better now, right? Like it's like mathematically better in some way. It's better at being a divination deck. That's really I'm fascinated by the idea that cartomancy is something that is potentially optimizable. Yeah, it's performance art and method acting, kinda. It's not fake, it's collaborative. In the same way that like you would never go to see some Shakespeare in the park and be like, what are they, idiots? Don't they know that Hamlet isn't real? Like, yeah, man, we all know that Hamlet isn't real, but it's still fun to watch a guy pretend to be Hamlet for a little bit.
Our position has been compromised.
Like that guy on stage is playing his part by pretending to be Hamlet, and I'm playing my part by allowing myself to exist in a world where Hamlet is real for a little bit. It's willing suspension of disbelief. And so it pisses me off when people are like, no, Hamlet is real. It's like, you don't think that. You don't actually think that Hamlet is real. Like, we can talk about Hamlet, like, we can talk about the experience of Hamlet not being real, but don't go around telling people that, no, guys, Hamlet is totally real, and it's actually disrespectful to tell people that Hamlet isn't real. It's like, well, no, you don't actually believe that. You're doing this weird performative thing because you're trying to sell yourself as a guy who believes in Hamlet. So stop fucking saying that. It's like, this is kind of what I mean with, like, the idea that people just don't have the tools to really describe their own belief systems in a way of, like, because, like, the people who go around saying, no, guys, Hamlet is totally real, like earth spirits are totally real, it's because they don't have the philosophy background to actually describe the thing that they think is real. Like, they think that there's, like, fake things like dreams and there's real things like rocks. And obviously Hamlet isn't a dream, so it has to be a rock. Like, no, there's levels to them. There's social constructs, and there's the difference between a real thing and a concrete thing. Things can be conceptual and virtual and whatnot. Like, but people don't know all those words, and so the only thing they have is, like, things are either fake or real. Dreamer is rocks to me. Yeah, that's true. I'm not a dream, so therefore I must be a rock. And, this is the fucking worst, is, like, people are like, okay, well, all things are either dreams or rocks, and I believe that magic is a rock, so therefore, anyone telling you that rocks are bad is racist in some way. And they hate brown people. Because there are many brown people that believe in rocks. Even if they are virulent white supremacists. That's always fun. It's like... Hey guys, let's all sit down and listen to the Tumblr Witchcraft blog's opinion on Hindutvas. That's one of those ones where it's like, I ain't touching that one. But how can I wring hierarchy and moral authority from this? Exactly. Listen, I talked to a blog that had some very woke opinions about Israel, and he said that Hindu people deserve Kamchatka. That's true. Authority and hierarchy literally are magic. They're rocks. It's just like, I want to go up to these people and be like, okay, but is there a difference between a rock and a picture of a rock? Like, are they real in the same way? Like, let's do some baby's first metaphysics here. Come on. Yeah, you know, I haven't seen a good old-fashioned you hate horoscopes because you're misogynist or homophobic recently. I've never actually seen that one in real life. I'm sure that's happened, but I've never seen that one in real life. She can tiny because of her wisdom. Yay, toys! when you worked at Wendy's, it was 80% horoscope believers, but that's a biased sample. Horoscopes have been very culturally normalized. I also think, like, it's one of those things where, like, I've talked to a lot of people who say they believe in horoscopes, so I think I'm particularly qualified to talk about this. But it's like,
Continue to defend.
I think a lot of the people who say they believe in horoscopes don't actually believe in horoscopes. I think they just think it's fun, and when people are like, "Do you believe in horoscopes?" they just go like, "Yeah, teehee." But if you actually like press them on it, like okay, would you bet $100 based on your horoscope? Like, would you use a horoscope for investment advice? A lot of them would be like, I wouldn't go that far. There definitely are people who would do that though. Yeah, they just want a reason to hate on their exes for being born in June. Yeah. And, like, horoscopes are fun. It's fun to look at the sky. It's fun to read horoscopes. In the same way that it's fun to get... I don't believe in tarot cards. I think it's fun to get tarot readings. It's fun to play toys with people. I know that's also not necessarily how other people see it. But, like, I have a friend who's, like, really into horoscopes. And, like, knows my chart and, like, keeps me updated on shit. But is also just, like... No, none of this is real. This is fun to think about. Like, yeah, that's fine. And you've got the other people are like, even doing that makes you a Nazi. It's like, okay, calm down, buddy. It's like, I think there's a big difference between, like, being a white supremacist and, like, occasionally doing silly things for fun, alright? Let's be serious here. Horoscopes are not skull shapes. Like, skull shapes are skull shapes are so much worse. People can get kind of skull shapes about horoscopes, but horoscopes are not necessarily skull shapes. I think you would agree with that, right? Like, not every person who believes in horoscopes is doing skull shapes. But there's no way to do skull shapes in a fun way, you know? I think you would agree that it's possible to engage with horoscopes in a completely harmless and fine way, but there's no way to engage with skull shapes, with phrenology, in a harmless and fun way. People definitely do get, like... It's like, whenever people pull up examples of, like, people using horoscopes to... Like, okay, the other thing is that whenever people pull up examples of people using horoscopes to, like, deny people housing, it's always, like, one queer housing group in San Francisco or some shit. Okay, it's always that, and it's never, like, arranged marriages in India. Because, like, Hindu castists love their astrology and constantly talk about it as a real thing. They also love their bullshit Ayurvedic medicine. And people die because of that shit.
Keep fighting. Another opportunity to extract will appear soon.
Why are you saying Disco Elysium characters in my chat? Is there a joke I missed? Really? They invented nose jobs. Huh, cool. I didn't know that. I find a lot of that, like, traditional medicine shit pretty interesting in a lot of circumstances. That's one thing I really enjoy about Chinese traditional medicine, is, like, a lot of it is like heritage, like, traditionally sourced nutritional science, which I find very interesting. Like, bone broth isn't bad for you. I fucking love broth. But even that synergized with racism in a way horoscopes can't. Yup. Anything with the body can get really racist really fast. Like anything related to the body. Even martial arts. How we doing? We're almost there. Okay. TCM's always felt like one of those, like, you got the right answer but you used the wrong process. Let's not be overly generous. A lot of Chinese traditional medicine, like, a lot of Chinese traditional medicine is complete bullshit. However, it does have some, like, interesting insights, and, like, there are some things in Chinese traditional medicine where it's like, oh yeah, that would work for that. But that doesn't mean that, like, the theory of Chinese traditional medicine is sound. Like, one of the interesting things that Chinese traditional medicine does is, they mapped out the limbic system in, like, the 4th century. Like, that's what key pathways are, is they're noticing the effects of the limbic system on the body. And that's really interesting. But, like, I've talked to people who are like, you need heating herbs, and I'm like, that's not a real thing. And they're like, what? No, it totally is. I'm like, no, there's literally no actual scientific evidence that heating and cooling herbs are a real thing. But ginger and lemon are really yummy when you're sick. Blasts you with my fucking herb heat. His ass needs pepper and mint. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to be wrong about the world in interesting ways. I do it all the time. Herbal medicine is grounded in reality like herbs and food. Yeah. Like, obviously all that shit had to come from somewhere, and there's, like... Actually, I know a guy who, like, does herbal medicine professionally, like, for a lab and shit. Like, his job is, like, extracting compounds from plants for use in medicine. That shit's super interesting for, like, research purposes. Well, science is the study of nature. Ginger ale will cure all illness. That's true. There's a lot of effective herbal medicines and discoveries within Ayurveda and CTM. That doesn't mean Ayurvedic medicine practitioner will actually help you. They will, in fact, sometimes tell you to consume lead and mercury. Yup. I think all these people just need a good, delicious, refreshing ginger ale. Yay! All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time that we wrap up. Look at my files, boy. All right, it was fun. I will see you next week. And hey, please remember, I'm only able to do this because of your generous support. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, please use the Patreon command or see the crawl at the top. Throw me some money. Absolutely no pressure, though. Bye!